I am not a lawyer, so I don't want to say anything about the court case, except to say that a great deal of information verifying, in fact, the situation come to us, not only because of the telephone calls which have been written about in the Quint and in the scroll, but we have photographic evidence that video as well as still photographs of these 40 people, 13 women, one 15-year-old and other young men, old men and so forth, all in 3 rows, and with the one of the military groups which is part of the resistance force of the National Unity Government, which is the government in opposition. This is something they call the Bhatul Army, against indefinite detention of the Rohingyas. Because and here we are not talking about challenging deportation. The Supreme Court judgment on Order 20 in the 2021 Salimullah case has said they can be deported. That India does not recognize the the International Convention for the Protection of Refugees. It does not recognize non-refoulement. It may be a customary law. We don't recognize it. But not our citizens. We will not accept them. I have known a situation when a 14-year-old girl was frog marched by the border security guards to the border and attempted to be pushed back. The border guards on the Myanmar side refused to open the door, because not only did they say this is the time of COVID, but because they said we don't recognize. The embassy has repeatedly said Rohingyas are not our citizens, they are stateless. So in a sense, what we did was because it's absolutely necessary if we wish to deport them back to Myanmar. I'm not even going into the situation of tumult, of war, of strife over there. I'm merely just saying they don't accept them. And now I am not a lawyer, so I don't want to say anything about the court case, except to say that a great deal of information verifying, in fact, the situation has come to us, not only because of the telephone calls which have been written about in the Quint and in the scroll, but we have photographic evidence that video as well as still photographs of these 40 people, 13 women, one 15-year-old and other young men, old men and so forth, all in 3 rows, and with the one of the military groups which is part of the resistance force of the National Unity Government, which is the government in opposition. This is something they call the Bhatul Army. I have not heard of it. I couldn't find it on Wikipedia or anywhere else, but they exist. There is a media platform called, I think, Maktur, which has in fact written about it. I have the photographs, I have the video, so there is a great deal of information. The UN Special Rapporteur, Thomas Andrews, has said he will investigate, that there is credible reason to believe that this has happened, and they will investigate. So there is in fact a great deal of evidence that is being accumulated, and let us hope that next time it is being considered, it will be taken seriously. The reason for the urgency of it is because more is about to happen. It is to stop this happening that in fact this press conference is taking place. It is because the detentions right now, I am a petitioner in a case against indefinite detention of the Rohingyas. Because and here we are not talking about challenging deportation. The Supreme Court judgment on Order 20 in the 2021 Salimullah case has said they can be deported. that India does not recognize the the International Convention for the Protection of Refugees. It does not recognize non-refoulement. It may be a customary law. We don't recognize it. But please do remember, India sits in the executive committee of the UNHCR. All guidelines are framed when India is sitting there in front. But nonetheless, okay, let us leave aside the deportation and whether non-refoulement can be, in fact, pushed aside the way that, in fact, the courts have done. What about detention? They have said specifically that deportation, detention, all has to follow due procedure, due process. Even detention is to follow due process. 2019, they have said, if somebody claims to be a refugee, suppose I claim to be a refugee, what happens? The FRRO, that's the Foreigners Registration Office, has 30 days to try and determine whether prima facie I could be a refugee or I have a credible claim to be an asylum seeker or not. If, however, they say no, then it goes actually to then the Ministry of Home Affairs, which in consultation with the Ministry of External Affairs and so forth, has to decide within 3 months. So there is a due process. But what happens? Now in the petition that I am the petitioner, we're looking at the Shahzada Bagh Detention Center in Delhi, in South Delhi. And in this case, there are 9 at the moment, but I am sure now there will be many, many more after this new order of the Ministry of Home Affairs. And in it, the case that I've looked at is that of Shadia Akhtar. Her sister, I know, that is Sabira Khatun, and it's called, there was an earlier case filed by Sabira Khatun, and that's how I met her. In this case, Shadia was about 24, 25. She was picked up, look at this. She had a newborn baby, 3 months old or something. She was breastfeeding. The baby had gone to her sister's house. They all live in this Kalindi Kunj refugee camp. It's a designated refugee camp. They're there. She receives a call from, in fact, the local police thana saying, come to the metro station. We need to get you to sign some papers. She has put tea on the stove. She runs because, they know how important it is that every document must be signed, that every document must be in order, because the legal precarity of their situation is such that they can't afford to dilly-dally. So she rushes, leaving, in fact, the pot boiling on the stove, thinking 5 minute लगेगा मैं वापस आ जाऊंगी. जल्दी से भागती है. वहाँ क्या हो जाता है? They pick her up. This is 2021. They pick her up. They take her to the detention center. 2024. Only because of repeated interventions by the court is, in fact, anything done in terms of even getting the due process done. It's in 2024 that her verification that she's not a refugee is done. Meaning 2021 she's detained, 2024. Okay, not only does that happen, but the paper, how does she prove that she's a refugee? She shows the card, UNHCR card, she shows her long-term visa. No, not relevant. She's asked to sign a paper, and in this personal form, there is no word written that I was persecuted, that's why I left Myanmar or I fled Myanmar. There is no such thing that talks about the conditions in Myanmar that forced her to leave, all of which is necessary in due process. But what happens to her? She gets thrown into this hellhole that Harsh was talking about. Shahzada Bagh is as bad. There was a review conducted and even the court was horrified at the state of this place. Anybody going in falls sick. And sure enough, Shadia fell sick. She kept complaining that there is a routine medical officer that visits. He gave her some palliatives and that was it. But her health deteriorated and finally she was about to collapse. Because of the court's intervention, she was found to have hepatitis C. She was finally treated. She was lucky. The person that Piali talked about, this young teenager who died, that is Hamida Begum. She was 19 when she died, or 18. She was a victim of trafficking. She gets put in this detention center. There is no court case. There is no sister who can help her. So instead, what happens to her? She's sick. She dies. So these detention centers, you get sent to these detention centers. They are nightmarish places. There is no light, there is no clean water, the food is bad, whatever. But more important, right now I want to just move away from the terrible conditions to say that indefinite, what does it mean for them? Indefinite detention. Because Myanmar has said very clearly, we're not going to take them back. So what are the options that are left to you? Rohingyas have been in jail for 10 years in West Bengal. How long are they going to languish in jail? According to our own jurisprudence, not involving the Rohingyas, but according to our own jurisprudence, it's either 2 months, maximum 3 years. But these people are served because Myanmar won't take them. So does that mean everybody's going to be put on a plane at Hindon, taken to Port Blair, taken by ferry and then dropped on the border? Because what else is there? Of course, there is the option of third country settlement, but that doesn't seem to be happening, and that's a very long process. And the other option, and the court itself has said it, that there are multiple menus of choices, is that if there is a designated refugee center, the person can be sent back to that center, and that is Kalindi Kunj. Every day they are monitored. The head count is done to make sure that there is no new person entering or people have not disappeared. So this is a controlled environment. You have options, but you're not using them. Instead, pushback, drop at sea are just so much more convenient options.
नेशनल दस्तक की आपसे गुजारिश है कि अगर इसको बचाना चाहते हैं तो नेशनल दस्तक को सब्सक्राइब करने के लिए रेड कलर के सब्सक्राइब बटन को दबाएं, फिर बेल आइकन की घंटी दबाएं। नेशनल दस्तक को बचाने के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है कि हर खबर को शेयर करें, लाइक करें, कमेंट जरूर करें।